was watching the show, I was sort of thinking, how would you sort of describe where Hawkeye is when we first encounter him? In some sense, it seems like he's just like done with being an Avenger.
I mean, I know. I think part of him hopes he's done with being an Avenger. It's a couple of years after the events of Endgame, which obviously saw him lose his family, get his family back. But the sort of price of getting his family back was Natasha, sacrificing herself, and so yes, I mean Clint's, over the years we've seen Clint sort of weather quite a lot of storms, but yeah, I think at this moment he's in New York with his family. It's Christmas time and trying to just be a dad. But of course, yes, the world will never quite let go of Clint Barton, so he gets pulled back in.
Although it does seem like he doesn't quite have the face recognition as maybe some of the other characters. At least that's the joke in the show.
Yeah.
Speaking of, like, you obviously have come from a lot of humor projects. Like, you've come from SNL, you did Documentary Now, things that obviously we really love. How have you, how did you sort of try to bring a sense of humor to the show, even with like some of the darker, angles of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, he is kind of the fifth Beatle of the Avengers, and I that kind of amused me. Yeah, it's an odd dynamic in such a sort of world-saving group, and so there are aspects of that I think they're are fun to play with, and to me, Clint's existence, there's something absurd about his life. I mean, yes, we could sort of sit in the drama of it, but yeah, there's an absurd quality to it. He is a real person, and his superpower is really just who he is inside, and so I think that complexity and sort of I think getting to the heart of that and that messiness of being a real person and the price that he's paid. There are different ways you can go at it, but to me, it again, Jeremy, I don't know, Jeremy has a grumpy face, and so it just felt like attacking it in a way that sort of pulled on that absurdity of his existence felt fun, and again, and hats off to Marvel that they were that's kind of an approach that they wanted to take with it as well.
I mean, I would watch a Documentary Now style mockumentary on Roger's musical. Like, I think the casting, I want to see all of it.
Yeah, no, we should do that. Yeah, no, I think Rogers the musical is essentially, it's the Documentary Now version of Hamilton in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the anachronistic, like Ant-Man being in there. Like, there's just so many layers, really.
Yeah.
So this is 6 episodes, 6 days, shot to, it comes out at Christmas. It's at Christmas.
Yeah.
Are you tired of Christmas?
I actually never got tired of Christmas. It was kind of this amusing thing to walk into. In April, stepping onto set on some street somewhere where the sun's blaring and watching our special effects guys desperately trying to keep the snow cold. And not melt. Was always fun, and you can never, again, Christmas decorations are a real quick fix. If you want to try and lift the spirit of a set. My kids may have grown tired of Christmas music in June, for sure. It's a limited bag, but no, I didn't grow tired of it.
I was looking at, this is totally unrelated to the show and I'm going to cut it out, but I was looking at pictures of like Hallmark Christmas movie setting, and it is amazing how much heavy lifting, like a string of lights and like a couple of
string lights
in the back.
Yeah. Again, the collective consciousness of Christmas, of sort of the art design of Christmas, that that we just inherently, it's like these triggers that we have. String lights in romantic comedies, man. They kind of drive me nuts.
So Florence Pugh's character Yelena is in the series, and in some ways Hawkeye sort of feels like a real changing of the guard. Like you're bringing in Haley Steinfeld. Jeremy Renner is maybe a little tired of being an Avenger. If you're doing like that tired, wired thing, like he's tired, she's wired, let's go. What do you think Hawkeye, the show, sort of says about like age, youth, and sort of the passage of time?
I mean, you kind of just described that's sort of the tired white. I mean, again, you've got it's an interesting thing. It's like, because you are kind of encapsulating it. I mean, I think it is about the passage of time, and I think it's and again, these are human characters, and so, again, Clint is someone that feels it. That when he gets hit, it takes him a moment, and there's kind of a there's a reality in the fact that these days it's even harder for him to get up from these things, and so ultimately, again, my way in on this show was just looking at the price he's paid and the price these people have paid, and maybe sometimes the idea of heroism versus the reality of heroism, and I think that's what we get to sort of dive into, and I think when, again, coming at it from a sort of low stakes point of view, like, letting the story kind of unravel, rather than coming in with, we've got 6 days to save the universe. I think it allows you to sort of, I think, revel a little bit in that reality with them, and get to know them and get to understand that sort of place, so that as things get worse, the stakes of like what that means to him. I mean, hopefully people understand. We'll feel Clint's kind of bad lower back when he has to get up quickly by the end of the show, which you don't get with any other heroes.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a toll, not just on your own, even with all that Stark technology. Like,
yeah,
you can't wipe your brain. Like, you've seen some shit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, and that's the thing. I mean, obviously, Clint's hearing loss was an interesting sort of way of physicalizing that. Again, I think it sort of just brings the show back to brings the MCU to a relatable place. I mean, the characters, there's universal characters in the MCU for sure that we can all, there's pieces of them that we can grab onto. But to me personally, I think what's exciting about this show is that it is focusing on truly relatable characters. I mean, yes, they're skilled and they've weathered some stuff, but they're seeing it through sort of similar eyes to our own, and have similar concerns and fears and doubts, and so that's really what the world of this show is.
Last question, real quick, lightning round. Which SNL cast member would make the best Marvel lead?
Oh well, I'm gonna like burn bridges. Whoever I would like to see Bill Hader in a Marvel lead, because yeah. I mean, again, obviously in Barry we've seen one side of him, but I'd want to see the Stefan version of Bill weathering some world-ending moment.